Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is paradigms of being. This is new ways that we can discover by telling new stories, that we can create transformation by the stories or through the stories we tell. So I think it'll be a fun discussion and looking at ways we can create our new realities. Before we get started, though, let's take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, and creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and very softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the deliciousness of that sensation and the tickling and the tingling, and allow that sensation to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form through which you experience life. So welcome. It's Monday morning. Good morning, Rosalind. Rosalind says, good morning, loving blessings for today. That's beautiful, Rosalind. Thank you so much. And welcome to you and to everybody else who's joining us this morning. We're talking today about new paradigms of being. And this conversation is prompted by a wonderful interview. Good morning, Kimberly. It's great to have you here with us. An interview I did with a wonderful woman who is an icon, a nationally, internationally renowned icon. She's I always challenge myself with this title. She is an evolution biologist. So she looks to our evolution and the evolution of life on the planet to understand patterns of transformation and growth and maturation and all of that. And she's also a futurist. So her name is Dr. Elizabeth Sartoris, and she's a lovely woman who has a spectacular perspective on who we are as human beings in the greater context of our planet and our evolution. So when we're talking about new paradigms of being, we have mostly been schooled to believe that we are competitive, that we are in a struggle for survival of the fittest, that that we live in a kill or be killed kind of world. And what Dr. Sartoris brought to the fore in our conversation was that, in fact, there's much more evidence in human history of cooperation. That there are periods through which we have, through which all life forms seem to have gone, that are periods of sometimes vicious competition, and evolved species get to a place of cooperation, moving beyond the competition to recognize that survival really relies upon cooperation. And we're in one of those moments now as a species where humanity is moving through its turbulent adolescence to evolve to a new place of cooperation and collaboration. And really, truly, that's the only way we're going to make it, especially facing the global challenges that we're facing with climate change and all kinds of other things, and the way we're polluting our environment and our bodies and our ecosystems, on and on and on. So when we look at shifting paradigms, the big question, or the thing that often inhibits people or demoralizes people, is the feeling that we're ineffectual, that there's nothing we can do to make a difference. And we have, I think we're not necessarily as conscious as we could be about the impact of the stories we tell. And so these are stories that we tell about ourselves. They're also stories that we tell about our culture, about humanity, about existence. And the thing that I would like to bring to awareness today is the power of story, the power that we have to be shifting ways of thinking through the stories we tell. And so to transform the story of humanity from one of fierce competition and opposition and othering and otherness, to shift that story to a story of unity and cooperation, and to recognize that is true through our history, in times of crisis, particularly, where people rally to support and uplift others, that we get to recognize ourselves through a different lens. And as we recognize ourselves through a different lens, all different things appear that we hadn't previously seen. And we attune ourselves to seeing more of the same, to seeing more of the things that are characteristic of that lens. So when we start recognizing cooperation, we start seeing more and more of it. So for example, I don't know if this rings true for you, but I remember, I guess it was about almost 11 years ago that I bought my Mini Cooper. And I love my Mini Cooper. I have to say, as detached from material possessions as I tried to be, I do love this car. And she has a name, Matilda. Anyway, when I bought the Mini Cooper, I saw Mini Coopers everywhere. And the question that I have is it that there were more Mini Coopers on the road, or that I was just attuned to seeing them? And I wonder if you've had that same experience. So as we gain awareness about something, that thing becomes more present in our field, right? Our presence to its existence is expanded. And with that expansion, then there are more possibilities. Maybe we make greater discernments. Maybe we see other things that are similar. So, in my situation, having awareness of a Mini Cooper, maybe it made me more aware of certain other types of vehicles, that might be of similar shape, but not quite the same. And, maybe it opened the arena to discovering different things that I wouldn't have discovered without that awareness. And I realize that's a pretty superficial example, but I'm imagining you might be able to relate to that. Like if you buy a white car, and again, I'm realizing that I'm tying this to material possessions, but it's just an obvious example. Let's say you buy a white car, and then you might be seeing a lot more white cars on the road. And uh, I think that this is pretty common and a wonderful foil for being able to shift our perspective. So maybe, and we often call these things synchronicities, that all of a sudden, as we gain a particular awareness, more instances aligned with that awareness start showing up. And it's because we have kind of tuned our receptive channel, tuned our radio receiver to these different frequencies. And so in generating shifting paradigms, or in order to shift paradigms, one of the foundational things we get to do is to change our story. And I see this in personal transformation, and I see it in cultural transformation, that individually, when we shift our story about who we've been, we talked a lot recently about moving from victimhood to empowerment. And the foundation of that is shifting our story. And when we shift our story, it shifts our perception and our beingness. And so when we were speaking in the, I think it was last week, about integrating experiences that were challenging, threatening, that were initially perceived as extremely destructive, when we integrate those stories in a way that empowers us, that new perspective gets applied in all different arenas, and it ripples out. So making an assumption, for instance, of connectedness, when we recognize, and it's so clearly the truth, but this is a paradigm that is arising with greater and greater strength and frequency, is our oneness with all things in the universe. Like we've all heard of the butterfly effect, but I think what we can recognize more and more is our interconnectedness. And science is validating that for us in so many ways. As we gain a richer understanding of nature, we're moving from a mechanistic notion of the way things work, where we can look at isolated elements to understand the bigger picture. We're recognizing that now we get to be looking at the bigger picture in order to recognize the elements that aren't actually isolated. So Rosalind says, what we focus on gives rise to awareness. Exactly. And hypersensitivity. What we focus on gives rise to awareness could come across as coincidence, synchronicity, while not being aware or avoiding an outcome puts the blinders on for any other outcome other than the perceived story. Well, I think that you're speaking absolutely what the situation is that when we believe something, when we have a certain idea about how things are, that creates the context through which we are able to perceive. So if we believe that we're in a hostile world, if we believe that people are out to get us, it doesn't mean they're not necessarily, but if we believe that people are out to get us, that's going to be the filter through which we interpret all kinds of events, right? It's going to be the filter through which we interpret other people's behaviors. If somebody looks sideways at us, we're going to take it personally and believe it's about us, rather than recognizing that that person, maybe they had gas. You know, like who knows what's going on with that other person. And so when we perceive things through a lens of acceptance and connection and compassion and curiosity, we're going to have a whole different response than if we are perceiving that people are out to get us, right? And that everyone else is other. You know, it allows us very different contexts of behavior based on what our beliefs are, right? If I believe that I'm connected to everyone and everything, the likelihood is that I'm not going to be doing aggressive, taking aggressive, dangerous, damaging actions toward everything and everyone else in the universe, right? Because that's damaging myself. And it's interesting because these are not new concepts. I mean, treat thy neighbor as thyself, you know, we've grown up with that, but it hasn't really been the prominent cultural message that we've gotten. And and I don't know if it's due to my blinders or my lens, but what I'm seeing is a rise in these the story, the context that we are all connected. I'm seeing it become more mainstream. I'm seeing it become a more constant underlying current. And that bodes well for humanity. A happy Valentine's Day, by the way. It just occurred to me it's Valentine's Day, and Valentine's Day is meant to be a celebration of love. So we can, I think, when it's not just a Hallmark holiday, right? If it's a celebration of love, then why not take the opportunity to look at what underlies that? What is the shaping paradigm that, you're so welcome, Kimberly. What is the underlying paradigm of love? You know, what does it mean if we truly operate from that place, you know? So so Kimberly says, love, 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 spread out the love. Exactly. So I mean, today we can celebrate love and have it be something that we share with everyone. And love is beautifully the gift that keeps on giving, right? Where the more we share love, the more we experience it. And so this is a day to be celebrating that, and maybe have it be the beginning of every day that we celebrate that. But again, we're talking about shifting paradigms. Good morning, Elaine. So great to have you here with us. So we're talking about shifting paradigms and what vehicles are most effective to do that. And really, truly, the most effective vehicle to do that is story. You know, and rewriting our story as a humanity that is connected to ourselves, connected to each other, connected to the planet, connected to our places. So Kimberly says, kindness, happiness, love surrounds, big happy smiles. That's beautiful. So I'm just inviting all of us to be alert to the stories we tell. And I remember I remember when I was first engaging with transformational work, and I don't remember a particular instance, but let's say I was enmeshed in a story of victimhood, feeling a victim, and somebody said, well, that's just your story. I got all kinds of bent out of shape because no, that wasn't my story. That was my reality. That was my truth. And I remember years later saying to somebody, well, that's your story. And they got all offended the same way that I had. And I understand that. And the truth that I perceive now, again, my working hypothesis, not like it's truth with a capital T, but there's an invitation here to consider that that our own lives are experienced through the stories that we tell about them. And what happens in those stories is that we're creating context for integrating our experience. And the context through which we integrate our experience can be one that is empowering or that is disempowering, or anywhere in between, for ourselves and for others. So human beings are meaning-making machines, right? We make meaning out of everything. And the meaning that we make creates the lens through which we experience the world. So we can change our experience of the world by shifting our stories. We can change the paradigms through which we evolve by changing our story as well. And one of the reasons that story is so impactful is because there's so much, we get very attached to our stories, and there's a whole bunch of emotion attached, right? So with the emotion attached to our stories, we're creating frequency, we're creating radio waves out into the universe, right? So if we connect our love to our story, and we use that love to power the story, then it has a greater impact in the universe versus having that story just be a mental exercise. So Elaine says, happy love day. As for me, every day is love day, for all life's true nature is love and joy. That's beautiful, Elaine. Exactly. And so we were talking earlier, I don't know if you were here or not, we were talking about celebrating love and spreading love, and maybe having today be the kickoff for that as a new practice, that we get to share love with all. And as we share it, it enriches us even further. So I'm encouraging all of us to be looking at the stories that we tell ourselves about our lives, about other people, about what we're facing in the world, and to recognize these stories as constructs rather than truth. We talk about sharing our own truth, and we can be adopting certain ideas and beliefs as true. And so many of us are willing to die on those hills, right? We will lose friends, we will lose relations, we will lose relationships, defending our stories rather than finding ways to create understanding and connection. And I think when we start recognizing that we need each other, that we are each other, first of all, and that we need each other, and to come to one another with respect rather than domination or control, a will to dominate or control. We can find the harmony that nature finds. I know we talked about compromise versus harmonize, and nature doesn't compromise, nature harmonizes. And that's a big lesson for us to take from nature, to nurture ourselves and our planet and each other, is to be inclusive rather than exclusive, to be telling the story of the richness in diversity, the resilience in diversity, that is regenerative. The more complex a system is, the more resilient it is, because it has so many different stopgaps that can help it to recover from an incursion or some kind of disaster. You know, if we have a circle of support, we have more resilience than if there's no one, or if there's one person, for example, because if that person or that singular support disappears, then that's our support network has gone. So the idea of it takes a village, before it can take a village, we get to make way for that story, you know, to allow ourselves to recognize that it takes a village, and then maybe we cultivate a village and move from our isolation. So I think that's it for today. I could have called this morning The Power of Story, but we get to really recognize and bring to awareness the stories we tell, because they have such a profound impact on the quality of our lives. Just as I'm wrapping up here, you guys are coming on in with all these comments. I'll try to get them in. Absolutely. Kimberly says, absolutely, positively, be gentle and kind. Give yourself a hug too. Today, it expands out to everything around you, 100%. Dido says, good morning, Dido. So good to have you here. Dido says, so love that message. Nature harmonizes rather than compromises. Love the takeaway of tend and befriend during stress for humans. That's beautiful. I never heard that before, Dido. Tend and befriend. That's beautiful. Elaine says, being and having our true nature beyond the mind, by being an example of the one true loving self, honoring the sacred connection in all life. 100%. That's what it's all about. It exists for all of us through all time. And with that, so much love to you. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. Please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network. And I can't wait to be back here again with you really soon.